Hello everyone. So today I am here to talk about another release by Microsoft for Endpoint DLP stack, where now Microsoft has released the Microsoft Managed Storage for as a preview feature for Endpoint DLP evidence collection for policy violations on Windows devices. Right. So currently, Microsoft Purview Endpoint DLP provides an option to collect the evidence for policy violations to a customer managed blob storage account. While this may be ideal for most of the organization, there has been a need for a Microsoft managed solution, right, for evidence collection. For customer managed solution, the organizations have to build up these strategies themselves for evidence collection, as they need to provision the storage accounts, the containers, and they also need to add the required permissions for the admins to view and manage the evidence, and the users to be able to upload the evidence to the blob storage from their devices, right? So they ideally need two set of permissions for a customer managed storage, one for the administrators or the investigators, so that they can view and manage, in the sense they can download the file from the blob storage. The other one for the users, because they would need the write access as well as the read access to the containers, because they'll be uploading the device sorry they'll be uploading the files from the devices where they're logged in, right, to the blob storage. Here you can see the JSON that I took from the Azure portal, right? And it's publicly available as well, right? So you can see these are the set of permissions for the investigators and the administrators. Now, also, to meet regulatory requirements, organizations have to ensure that the Azure storage accounts they use are within the same geographical or regulatory boundaries as the device from which they are being copied, right? They should also consider the geopolitical location of the DLP investigator who will access the sensitive items once they are stored. So, for example, if they have a device that's in, let's say, Europe, right, and the user is in Europe, device is in Europe, the evidence is collected in Europe. Now, if you have an admin that's in US, right, there can be some problems, right, in terms of data access, right? So there are a lot of strategies that the organizations have to come up to ensure that they're compliant with the regulations, and and also ensure that they have they manage the permissions for the blobs that they provision, right? Now, that what we've noticed mainly is that most of the time the admins are unable to see the uploaded file or download the uploaded file is primarily due to the incorrect permissions, right? So the permissions can go stale, or the permissions may not work if not added correctly. Again, there is also a data residency limitation as of today with 10 Azure storage account limit. So this these are the current setup right now, and there has always been a need to have a more comprehensive uh, managed solution for evidence collection. And with that in mind, Microsoft has come up with the Microsoft Managed Storage for evidence collection. You can find this in the roadmap with the roadmap ID 420333, right? It is already in public preview as of November 2024, and as per the date that I see uh, in the roadmap, it says it's going to roll out somewhere in April 2025, right? Now, with this capability, admins can choose to store a copy of the file that resulted in a DLP policy match. The admins uses this data to analyze the contents to confirm the full set of data that was exfiltrated to severity. To configure Microsoft Managed Storage similar to customer managed storage, the users can go to the Endpoint DLP settings and select Microsoft Managed Storage. As compared to customer managed storage, the admins need not configure any additional settings like adding a blob URL or assigning permissions or selecting storage and policy workflow. And we'll talk in depth about each of these, and I'll show you in a demo. As you can see in the picture that's towards the right, you have for customer managed storage, you have an option to add the storage. Right here, you go ahead and add the URLs of your containers. Second is, the when you select the Microsoft managed storage, you'll not see the add storage option there. So set evidence cache on device is something where the device that loses internet connectivity, so these evidence would be saved, uh, uh, you know to certain days, from day 7, for 7 days to 60 days. You can configure that, and once it restores and connectivity, it will go ahead and upload those evidence to whichever storage account that you configure here. Now, again, I'll talk more about the evidence, the cache, and there is some limitation as well there. So next thing is the activities supported for evidence collection. So these are the activities that are supported as of today for collecting the evidence for the policy violations. That's paste to supported browser, upload to cloud service domains or access unallowed browsers, copy to a removable USB device, copy to a network share, print, copy or move using an unallowed Bluetooth app, copy or move using RDP. So when you go to configure this in the DLP rule, you'll only see these options. You'll not see options like copy to clipboard. So as of now, those actions would not trigger the evidence collection. Okay. So in order to configure the Microsoft managed solution, it's pretty straightforward, right? As it takes care of most of the configuration by just selecting the relevant option from the endpoint DLP settings, right? So in order to have Microsoft manage the storage for the files that are collected as evidence, you have to sign into the Microsoft Purview portal and go to the settings and go to data loss prevention, and then you have to select the endpoint DLP settings. From there, you go to set up evidence collection for file activities on devices, and you just have to check the radio button Microsoft Manage Store. Right, the moment you do that, it's all done. I mean, you don't have to worry more about adding URLs and all of that. Right. Second, once you set up the global settings here, you need to configure your policy, right? So then you go the DLP policy, right, and you ensure that you switch on or toggle on send an alert to admin when a rule match occurs, because only then the evidence collection will be enabled. Once you do that, you'll get an option to collect the original file as evidence for all selected file activities on endpoint. Now, here you have an option if you want to collect file evidence only, say for example, paste to supported browser, or you want it only for copy to network share, you can do that, or you can select all. Next, we'll talk about the comparison between the customer managed and Microsoft managed, and we'll also talk about like what happens when you switch from currently configured customer managed to Microsoft managed, right? In terms of file retention, now as the customers themselves manage the blob storage accounts, they can keep the files as long as they want or they need, right? Wherein in Microsoft manage, as Microsoft manages the storage, and there is no access to for the admins to basically these storage accounts in terms of looking at the files that are stored, so on and so forth. uh, right, the files are retained for a maximum of 120 days. Right now, the settings, as you know, that there are quite a few settings that the admins have to make in order to add the custom storage as an option, right? So you first must add the blob storage URL in the endpoint settings, and then use Microsoft Entra Admin Center to configure the permissions for users and also for the admins, right? So for users who are in scope, and also for admins in order to access the file and download the file. For Microsoft Manage, all configuration permissions are handled with just a single click. The moment you go to the endpoint settings and you select Microsoft Manage Storage as an option, all the permissions are configured automatically. You don't have to worry about anything. The only thing that you may still have to add in terms of permission for Microsoft Manage, again, it has nothing to do with uh, evidence collection, is for the admins who would be accessing the activity center, right? uh, or they would be accessing the files that are collected in evidence. They must have data classification content viewer role. This is required, and since this is it is the access to the content explorer is highly restricted because it actually collects the scanned files. So that's the reason why it's needed, right? uh, Again, policy and location configuration, you must add and configure the storage blobs, right, on a per policy basis for each location where a policy is applied. So for example, right, if you have say five storage urls that you add in the global settings, when you have the customer managed account enabled, storage enabled, right, then you have to go to each DLP policy, and you have to uh, add or choose, right, for which policy which storage account will be used, right? So when you select that, you get an option. When you select customer managed as an option, you get an option in DLP rule to list to select the to select the storage account from the list. Okay, when it is Microsoft managed, right, uh, I mean, there's no storage selection needed, right, for specific policy location. It all stays Microsoft Manage for every policy that you create, and you enable the evidence collection. Now, data store location region, again, this is very customizable when it comes to customer manage, chosen by the customer. It can be different than the tenant region, right? For Microsoft Manage, it's the same region as your Microsoft Purview tenant. Okay. Charges, there can be additional cost for definitely there is additional cost for provisioning the storage accounts. So you'll get some bill through your Azure billing, uh, apart from your Entra subscription, right? Your E5 subscription. With Microsoft Managed, storage cost today is included with your E5 subscription, but Microsoft is, as of now, it's monitoring the usage, and definitely it may charge additional based on the excessive usage. This will be communicated as and when there is any progress on this, uh, you know, um, to to the organizations once they decide on the billing model for the Microsoft Managed Storage account. Network configuration, again, you must allow the container URL for your storage blobs to pass through your network firewall, right? Uh, and for Microsoft Manage, you just have to ensure that you have compliancedrive.microsoft.com on an allow list, right? So that it can pass through your network firewall. Now, this URL is a part of Microsoft's trust boundary, right? Now that's the comparison, and we'll go through most of it when I'll walk you through the demo. Right, we'll go through the Azure portal. I will go to the Purview portal as well, and I'll show you the alert. I'll show you uh, the Activity Explorer as well. Right. Now, what happens, for example, as of now, the customer has customer managed solution. What happens if when they switch to Microsoft Manage, right? So again, the files that match the criteria will still show up in alert results, even if the storage management type is changed, provided the RBAC permissions that the users have provision as part of their customer managed solution are still the same, right? They aren't changed. Because you manage your own storage solution as part of the customer managed location, right? Your DLP administrators can continue to download files individually even after they have been transferred to Microsoft Managed Storage Solutions. Now, these files were already saved to your DLP solution, to your blob storage, and you have added permission to the blob storage, right? So Microsoft Purview is not in the picture, right? Yet, as long as you have the permissions there in the blob storage, the admins will be able to download. Right now, once you switch from the customer managed to Microsoft managed, then whatever URLs, blob URLs that you've added earlier from the global endpoint DLP settings will will be gone, right? So you need to ensure that you have the strategy documented somewhere when you implemented the customer managed solution. uh, Once you change it, you will have to refresh your policies, right? So that it can pick up the new access data storage type. Okay. Next, there are a few known issues, right? um, First, files stored in the device cache are not retained if the system crashes and restarts. So this is when I was talking about, like, when you go to the global endpoint DLP settings, you get where you choose between the customer managed versus Microsoft Manage. You have an option, right? From day 7 to day 60, you can configure the device cache. So if in case the device would crash or restart, right, then this cache is not retained. Again, there's a maximum file size for upload from a device, that is 500 MB. So that the cache, uh, right, the maximum file size is 500 MB. And again, uh, uh, this is not related to the threshold that is set up for advanced classifier threshold, right? Next is, now you may be wondering, right, why these uh, you know files are whether or not these files are accessible to the user on the device. So these files, or these locations where it adds those files to the cache, is actually not accessible by anyone, not the you logged in user, not even the administrator, and no one is supposed to know, or it's nowhere publicly documented, right, where it is stored. So if you have the just-in-time protection, right, on a scan file, or if the file is stored on a network share, the evidence file is not collected. Next, when multiple files are opened in the same non-office application and one of the file matches a policy and is egressed, DLP events are triggered for all the files, but the evidence again will not be captured. Uh, if multiple policy rules are detected in a single file, which is possible, the evidence file is only stored if the most restrictive policy rule is set to collect evidence. For example, you have a rule that blocks but allows override, and a file evidence is enabled on this rule, and another rule that blocks and doesn't allow override, and file evidence isn't enabled on this rule, then the file will not be collected as evidence. Because in that case, when both the rules will be applicable, the most restrictive, which is block and do not allow override, is considered as more restrictive, but this rule doesn't have file evidence enabled, so it will not collect the file. Okay. Now again, the copies are actually not saved in the changeless state, so they do not qualify the true evidence in legal sense. For legal requirements, like, I mean, that, like, there is no versioning or anything as such, right? It just picks up the state that is there as of the time when the violation happened, right? So if in case you're looking for legal requirement, you must still continue to use the Purview e-discovery solution. Evidence collection, right? So when an item and the action a user performs on it meets the criteria set by DLP policy, so an event called DLP rule match will appear in the activity explorer, right? Now the admins must have, as I already mentioned this, the admins must have data classification content viewer role on preview permissions to be able to view and download the file, because it's considered as highly sensitive, and not everyone, not even the global admin, should have access, right? So only the set of users who, or the investigators who should have access to download and access the files, should have access to this particular role as well. Now, DLP rule match event contains only a limited amount of text that surrounds the match content called contextual summary. So let's not get confused with the contextual summary, as it only has limited amount of set, wherein it will show up for any or every location that DLP supports. The evidence collection profile is only available for Windows devices, and it saves a copy of the entire item that match the policy. Okay, so that's the difference between contextual summary and evidence collection. So next, let me take you through the demo. So as I said, first, let me take you to the preview portal. So in order for you to manage or switch from the customer manage to Microsoft manage, you have to go to the Purview portal. You have to go to the settings, and under settings you have to go to the data loss prevention and endpoint DLP settings. There you have set up evidence collection for file activities on devices, and here you get an option. So the moment you select Microsoft manage, right, you'll see that there is no other option here. This is the cache that I was talking about. You can select from day minimum 7 days to 60 days. Once you select the customer manage, right, it should give you an option here to add the storage account. Let me see. Yep. Yes. Yeah. So you may have to refresh it. Right? So you have to add a storage. So this is where you provide the URL. Now this URL is actually the URL that you get from the container, right? If you go to the container, you get the URL. Now again, for that you have to go to the storage account in Azure, right, and then go to containers and go to the properties, and that is where you get the URL. Okay, and again, once you add that URL there, you have to provision the permissions. Just a minute. Let me switch it back. Okay, you have to provision the permissions as well, right? So here, just a minute. Yeah, roles. Okay, sorry, the custom roles. So these are the two roles, right, for customer manage that you have to create. One is the investigator role, right, and you can see that these are the list of permissions, right, that I need to have for this particular role. And second one is the user role, where they should have access to uh, to upload the file from the devices, right? They need to have the right access as well, as you can see, right? So now going back, so right now it is Microsoft managed. Next you go to the policies. When you go to the policies, right, in for configuring the rules, you have to ensure that this send an alert to admins when a rule match occur is turned on. Okay, so once you turn this on, you'll see the evidence, right? Ideally, I just switched it, so it was giving me an option to add storage, but ideally when you have Microsoft manage, you'll not get an option here to add storage or select storage. When you have customer manage, here you'll get an option to select the storage account from the list. You can select the option for which the activities for which you want to collect evidence, right? Next is the activity explorer. So once you go to the activity explorer, once there is a violation, right, of the policy, you'll see the DLP rule match event here, right? And when you go to you'll see the Microsoft managed. So if it is customer managed, right, this is where you'll get it, and you get the file here. You click on download, okay, and it will download it, right. So you'll go to your download folder. It is downloaded. As a word, this is the actual file. Okay, now this is dummy data. Right, I got it from the internet for DLP use. Next, you go to the alert. Right, I'll just show you the contextual summary as well. It takes a while. Mhm. Come on. Okay. Yeah, this contextual summary, right? So this only gives you the limited set of information from the file. Okay, not everything, right? Not a complete copy of the file. All right. Um, uh, okay, so I think that's pretty much that's pretty much about it. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you so much for your time.